For most of your working life, inflation was something you barely noticed. Prices went up slowly, wages followed, and your savings still meant something. You could plan, you could project, you could trust that the money you earned today would still hold value tomorrow. And that sense of stability is exactly what built the American middle class. But inflation didn't destroy the middle class overnight. It didn't arrive with sirens or headlines. It came quietly, gradually, almost politely. And by the time most people realized what was happening, the damage was already done. If you're over 55, you remember when being middle class meant security. It meant owning a home, raising children, taking vacations, and retiring with dignity. You didn't need financial engineering. You didn't need constant side hustles. You didn't need to gamble in the stock market just to keep up. Your labor was enough. Today, that reality feels distant. And inflation is the main reason why. Inflation is often described as rising prices. That definition is incomplete. Inflation is really the slow erosion of purchasing power. It is what happens when the value of money declines faster than incomes rise. And when that process persists for decades, it doesn't just raise costs, it reshapes society. In the decades following World War II, inflation was relatively controlled. Productivity gains translated into wage growth. When the economy expanded, workers shared in the prosperity. A factory worker could buy a home. A teacher could support a family. Savings accounts actually paid interest above inflation. The system rewarded discipline, patience, and long-term thinking. That system broke in the 1970s. The inflation crisis of that decade changed everything. Governments around the world learned a dangerous lesson. Inflation could be used as a tool. It reduced the real value of debt. It allowed spending without immediate political consequences. And once policymakers realized this, inflation stopped being an accident and became a feature of the system. From that point forward, inflation became quieter, but more persistent. Instead of dramatic price spikes, Americans experienced steady erosion. Wages rose in nominal terms, but not in real terms. Your paycheck looked bigger, but it bought less. Healthcare costs rose faster than inflation. Housing costs exploded. Education became unaffordable without debt. Energy prices fluctuated violently. Meanwhile, official inflation numbers often failed to capture the reality people felt in their daily lives. This is how inflation steals without being noticed. It doesn't take money from your bank account. It makes the money you already earned worth less every year. The Federal Reserve played a central role in this process. For decades, the Fed responded to every economic slowdown with lower interest rates and more liquidity. Cheap money flooded the system. Asset prices soared. Stocks went higher. Real estate surged. Those who already owned assets benefited enormously. Those who relied primarily on wages fell behind. This created a two-tier economy. One group lived off asset appreciation. The other lived off income that could never keep up with rising costs. That gap is the hollowing out of the middle class. Savings were quietly punished. Retirees who depended on fixed income saw their purchasing power erode. Interest rates on savings accounts remained below inflation for years. Doing the right thing, saving, avoiding debt, living responsibly, stopped being rewarded. Housing, once the cornerstone of middle-class stability, became a speculative asset. Low interest rates pushed prices beyond the reach of average earners. Property taxes rose alongside valuations. Rent followed. The home transformed from shelter into a financial instrument, and the middle class paid the price. Inflation also changed behavior. It forced people to take risks they never wanted. It pushed families into the stock market not to build wealth, but to preserve it. It encouraged debt, because debt becomes cheaper in inflationary systems. The careful saver became the loser. The leveraged borrower gained advantage. This inversion of values is one of inflation's most corrosive effects. For Americans over 55, this theft feels deeply personal. You did everything right. You worked, you saved, you delayed gratification, and yet retirement feels more fragile than expected. Healthcare costs rise faster than Social Security adjustments. Fixed incomes lose ground every year. What once felt like abundance now feels tight. Younger generations feel it too, but differently. They don't remember a stable system. They inherited an economy already distorted by decades of monetary expansion. They aren't reckless, they're adapting. Dual incomes are required. Debt is unavoidable. Home ownership is delayed or abandoned. The American dream didn't disappear. It was priced out. The most dangerous part of inflation is that it normalizes decline. People adjust their expectations downward. They blame themselves. They assume this is how things are supposed to be. That resignation is how inflation completes its work. Inflation didn't just raise prices. It rewrote the social contract. It transferred wealth quietly, from savers to debtors, from workers to asset owners, from the middle class to the financial system. And it did so slowly enough that resistance never formed. Understanding this isn't about anger. It's about awareness. Because once you see inflation for what it really is, a silent tax, a hidden transfer, a long-term thief, you stop blaming individuals and start questioning the system. The middle class wasn't lazy. It wasn't irresponsible. It was slowly outpaced by a monetary structure that no longer served it. And the first step toward protecting what remains is recognizing how it was taken.